Welcome back to Costly Conversation. We have Trayvon Barber on the line from Barber Training Solutions. Thank you so much for coming in. Definitely excited to have somebody of your stature and your status, your accomplishments in the competition world and in the training business. Super excited to have you here. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We just want to get out the way. If you would please go ahead and like the video so that other people on YouTube can see it and see what we're doing and perhaps enjoy what we're having to say. That being said, Trey Barber, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure, brother. My pleasure. It's good to be here.
Yes, sir. If you would just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, if anybody types in your name in, basically anywhere, they'll find you a competition shooter, sort of accomplished. You've done a thing or two in that world. You also do some training and whatnot. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I run Barber Training Solutions. I was very creative with that name. The name's Trayvon Barber, so just went with it. I'm based out of Rock Hill, South Carolina. I do travel around if necessary, but most people just come to me because I've got my own spot out in the woods in Rock Hill. Competition shooter, classified as a master right now. I've been shooting actively, been able to participate about 2 years and some change. I've been a member of USPSA, which is the United States Practical Shooting Association, for about 4 years. So I say actively participating because 2020, nobody really got to participate. And that the year before that, I had some personal stuff going on, so that took me away from the competition circuit. As far as training goes, I do a ton of concealed weapon permits for South Carolina. A lot of one-on-one clients. Sorry about that, Instagram going off. A lot of one-on-one clients for competition, for self-defense, for anything that you can think of. And of course, I put on classes for competition, individualized training, different things of that nature. So it's been pretty cool. I'm enjoying it. I'm really loving seeing all the guys and girls who come to me and progressing, day in and day out.
All right, man. So I know you said you do some actual training classes. What's that like? You said you're in South Carolina. Is that right? Did I hear you right?
Yes, Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Okay, South Carolina. Last time I rode through South Carolina, a whole lot of black folks in South Carolina.
A whole lot.
And I felt right at home. It was weird. I walked into some Asian food store, like everywhere. I was like, wow. There's a whole lot of black folks.
Where are you out of?
Yeah, right, man. At the time, I was staying in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is not very diverse.
Yeah.
It depends on where you go. And right now, I'm staying in East Texas for those who know where I am. I shoot out in Dallas. I stay in East Texas. You can find your folks, but to be that heavily populated, it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing. But just kind of getting back to you a little bit more. So what's that like? In the training world, what are some of the things that you're seeing, and what are some, maybe if you had to tell the audience something about shooting and getting training, what would you have to say?
So teaching competition classes or classes in general, pretty straightforward, honestly. So I approach all classes about the same. I start with safety and fundamentals, move right into heavy fundamentals, making sure that one, you can hit what you're actually aiming at. And then two, can you be safe while doing it? So those are my main two. And then from there, I kind of mold one-on-one sessions to the shooter or to the person that I'm working with. If I'm doing a full-on group class, I typically don't take more than like 6 to 8 people. Because then I can't focus on everybody. If I wanted to do classes much bigger than that, I have to bring in 1 or 2 ROs with me. But even then, some of the guys who are local to me, and I love them to death, but they don't have the same skill level that I do or the same level of scrutiny when it comes to particular skills or drills to be able to diagnose a shooter because they themselves may not have that ability. So it's still kind of be like, hey, Trey, can you come over here and help in a second? You know what I mean? So I keep it smaller classes. So for a guy or girl who's interested in getting into competition or shooting in general, if it came from me, my biggest thing would be focus 1 on safety, but 2 on your fundamentals. And that's what you're going to hear from any legitimate real trainers, your fundamentals. somebody goes to YouTube or Instagram, whatever, and watches my videos and like, oh man, he's shooting so fast and he's running around with the gun. Well, first thing is I'm having to be safe if I'm shooting that fast, especially running around. And if you're watching me do it, that means somebody's recording me, and then you've got other people around, right? So safety is going to be the biggest concern. So the biggest thing to make sure is to maintain safety. But then the second thing is fundamentals. All I'm really doing is executing the fundamentals on demand with control at speed and maintain accuracy while doing it all. So in order to do that, I have to be able to do it slowly first, do it on demand first, and then be able to implement it and add speed into the equation.
Yeah, okay. And I suppose what are some of the fundamentals of shooting that somebody should be looking at, say looking up on YouTube? What are some things that they should be practicing at home in order to get to a point where they can confidently take their shooting to the next level, or even just kind of getting into shooting, period?
Yeah, for sure. So all of the fundamentals for what I teach for the most part are going to be standard for anybody else, right? Or any other instructor. So it's going to be sight alignment and sight picture, trigger control, grip, your stance, and then safety. So for me, I really harp on perfect grip, perfect grip, trigger control. Sight alignment and sight picture aren't quite as much of a very needed fundamental for what I personally do, and as far as competition goes, because I shoot with a red dot. Even if I was shooting with iron sights, there doesn't have to be so much focus on this perfect sight picture or perfect sight alignment as people think that there needs to be. Now, if I'm starting with a brand new shooter or even a intermediate shooter, yeah, I want to run you through the standard way of lining up sights, covering up the target, placing shots on target. But when we really get into the flow of things and I really show people how much you can loosen up your sights and how much you can get away with, it opens people's minds. Because if I'm shooting USPSA targets, you've got a big old A zone in the middle. And a lot of people shoot those targets now just for practice. So if you've got a big A zone in the middle of a target, there's really no need to try to, shoot the wings off a fly type accuracy. You just need 2 bullets to go in this general area, and you get the same amount of points. So whether those bullets touch one another or whether they are on the top edge of the A zone and the bottom of the edge of the A zone, you still got 2 A zone hits. So whatever amount of focus or accuracy that you need for that, that's all I'm going to give it. So I'm only going to give targets enough respect. And then I really go down into your grip, being able to make multiple shots in succession, and mitigating that recoil to make those shots quicker and quicker. You really got to have a proper grip, and your grip has to stay the same throughout each shot. What I tend to see is people will start shooting and that grip deteriorates and those shots start to spread out. You really want to keep those shots nice and tight, so your grip's going to be key. Stance isn't quite as much of a fundamental that I harp on, because if I'm moving and shooting, my stance is probably going to change. If I've got to squat down to shoot something low, my stance changes. If I have to lay down, if I've got to whatever, right? My main thing is try to stay low, keep my legs loaded, and keep my core tight. Those are going to be my main things with that. So those are really the fundamentals. Good grip, proper trigger press, of course. Don't move the gun when you line the sights. And then only the amount of accuracy as far as sights go as that target requires. Sorry, it's a long-winded answer.
No. I mean, that's the meat of it. And real quick, for those who have made it this far into the conversation, I do kind of want to get into some of the spicy stuff, some of the controversies out there. Not specifically to do with you. I'm not going to harass you. But,
I gotcha.
There is a little bit of, this feud between the iron sights and the red dot world. Let's go ahead and get into it. Which one's better? I know you shoot with the red dot, so I assume you think that's better. Why?
Better? Better's a touchy word. I would say it's preferred. I would say it's more efficient. I would say it's faster. So if you equate that to being better, then hey. For the majority of shooters, period, the majority of people, I would say shooting a red dot is going to be easier with practice. So the same comes if you pick up a gun with iron sights. A brand new shooter has no idea what to do with those things unless they watch a YouTube, a podcast. They go to a class and somebody says, hey, these bumps on the top of the gun, you kind of got to line those things up. And then when you line them up, you got to cover up the thing you want to shoot. And then once you got all that done, you got to press the trigger and don't move those things. So if nobody's ever told them that, they've never practiced it, well, it doesn't even matter, right? Same thing goes for a red dot. If a person picks up a gun out of the store with a dot on it, which some are coming equipped now, they draw that gun and push it out. It's like, you see the dot? No. Okay, that's something we got to work on. So that comes into grip, proper presentation, locking your wrist, and then tracking the dot. So even when somebody's able to pick up the dot, well, now I have to teach you how to actually properly shoot a dot, because you don't look at it. You actually superimpose it. You look through it. The whole purpose of having a red dot is to be faster. So if we're looking at that dot like it's sights, well, we're doing it improperly. If you have a physical altercation, somebody's going to attack you, somebody breaks into your house, the human brain, whatever you want to call it, is not going to focus on that gun. It's going to focus on the threat. Unless you've had a very high level of training like SWAT or special forces or military, and you've been in that type of engagement before, the average human is going to focus on the person or the thing that's attacking them. So why wouldn't I want to practice that way, being target focused? So a dot really enables a person to target focus. For competition, it's going to be much faster. I can acquire my sight picture and get off a clean A-zone hit in 0.6 of a second out to 10 yards. And I've done that from concealment. Now that's really pushing it, and that's luck from concealment. But from standing still, I can do it consistently in 0.6. Under match conditions, it's typically like 0.8. I've actually got a video. Did I post that one today? What's that?
You said 0.8?
Yeah, around a 0.88, I think, was my draw on the last video, or a video before that I posted from the last competition that I shot. There's a target. I mean, the thing was pretty freaking close. It's probably at 5 yards, but 5 to 10 yards, that draw shouldn't change, especially on an open target. But with a dot, as soon as I see any sort of flash of red in the area where I want a bullet to go, I can press the shot off. With irons, if I just see that front sight post, more than likely that bullet's going high, because if the only thing I can see is the front sight post, typically it tells me that my rear sights are going to be sitting low, because when I draw my gun, I'm typically got my wrist is going to be angled up. I haven't locked the wrist quite yet. So if I see front sight post and press the trigger, that shot's probably high. I haven't leveled off the gun. With a red dot, by the time I see any flash of red, that means that I've somewhat got the gun leveled out, because I see red. If you don't have that gun at least somewhat level, typically you're not going to see a dot. So that's a good thing about the red dot. Some people can kind of cheat with it, and they have irons on their gun, and they can superimpose that front sight to find where their dot's at. I don't have a front sight post on my guns with dots that I run in competition. My carry gun has iron sights on them, but they're not the suppressor height sights, so I can't really, superimpose or double up those sights on there. That's an argument that people can make all day long, but it kind of is what it is. So for that argument, yeah, I go with dots. I mean, I've ran the test myself. I'll give a brand new shooter who's come to my class, hey, I've never shot a gun before. Perfect. I love those. They have nothing that I have to erase. They don't have any bad habits to get rid of. The only thing that they're going to do are things that I showed them. So they're only going to learn good things. So I'll give them an iron gun, and I'll give them a dot gun, and I'll have 2 different targets, and I'll see which target looks better, and I'll see which one they can see which one they can acquire sights faster. It has always been a dot. Always. So they're kind of my test subjects that don't know they're my test subjects.
Well, I mean, that's awesome. I appreciate that answer. I feel like you actually took your time to flesh that out.
Good.
So for those who, obviously, I think people can see behind you. I think maybe people can tell you're a little bit of a psycho. You have little targets in your house. for
everywhere.
Trey, why you got targets in your house, just on your walls? I've seen the video. You running around your house, pointing guns, pulling the trigger. Yeah. What is going on? Are you a crazy man? What's going on?
So that's that. You could probably call me crazy, but they're just dry fire targets. So anybody that's not, excuse me, y'all, I'm sniffing and whatnot. I've got a little cold going on, but any targets that you see around my house, I mean, all good, brother. So dry fire targets, people who aren't familiar with the term dry fire, that's going through operation and manipulation of your handgun with no ammo involved. So you're racking the gun, you're getting a proper grip, you're lining up your sights, you're pressing the trigger, you're running around, getting a proper stance and whatnot with no ammo. So about 90% of shooting, if not more, can be done in dry fire, because the only thing that you have to do on the range is actually solidify and confirm what you did in dry fire with live fire. So there are a few things that you can only do in live fire, like learning to quote unquote ride the recoil. Those terms are different things that people have to really understand. Learning how to transition, like bump recoil transitions, different things like that. That terminology that if you're not familiar, you'll learn it as you go. But yeah, these targets are just for dry fire, and I run around the house, like you said, like a crazy man, getting sight pictures, getting into and out of positions like for competition, and getting rid of any of the small issues that I have on stages while in the house without wasting money before I go out to dry, or before I go out to the land and live fire. I like to get out all the crazy mistakes that I do in live fire on ranges, get that out in dry fire at the house without using money to do it.
There you go. So just real quick, for the record, how long have you actually been shooting? Like, when was the first time you touched a gun?
Touched a gun would have been probably Boy Scout camp when I was like 16. It was a 22 rifle. Didn't touch a gun again until I was 21. And I'm 20, I'll be 28 this July. So I've only been able to legally have a gun for 7 years. I've only been competing. I think I got interested in competition or started looking for it when I was probably 22, 23. So I've been a member for 4 years. So yeah, about 23. So I've probably only been a gun owner for like 5 years.
That's crazy. And you are as good as you are. So obviously you're gifted at least a little bit, because there's a lot of people who want a sub 1 second draw and they just can barely manage it. But you're talking about like was that a 0.4 or something insane?
Oh, heck no.
What did you say? 0.6. 0.6. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 0.6.
0.6. Okay. I'm over here just like
ridiculous. No, I can't.
Man. All right, Trey.
No, I don't know anybody that's done a 0.4.
I'm sure they're out there.
Yeah, but that said, for people, yeah, probably so.
Yeah. But what got you into the idea of like, hey, I want to, first of all, what got you into shooting, period? Like, what told you, like, hey, go out and get a gun? Or was it, I saw some guys doing a competition and you said, let me get a gun? Like, what? Tell me the story. What happened?
Nah, man, I'm a boy through and through. Like, since I've been a kid, I've been into guns, motorcycles, girls, and tattoos. And as soon as I got out my parents' house, it was on. I mean, I'm tatted from the shoulders, chest down. I've had 2 or 3 motorcycles at this point. I've got more guns than I can name, and I've got one girl, my wife. But yeah, so that was me. Basically, everything my mom said, no, don't go do, don't mess with that. I wanted to do. So as soon as I was able to legally get a gun, I wanted to own a gun. But then once I did get the gun and kind of realized the responsibility that came with it, it got me intrigued and interested in learning more about self-defense.
Yeah.
That stuff. And I've been a wrestler since I was 5. So self-defense and kind of combat style mindset has always been, it's just been me. I was on track to be in the military, but health stuff kind of got me off that track out of high school. So I changed kind of careers and whatnot. But yeah, so that's always kind of been my mindset. Has always been a kind of alpha male protector type deal.
That's what's up, man.
Guns just fit into that lifestyle.
When did you decide, or what got you into saying like, hey, I want to do some competition stuff? Like, that looks fun.
On a whim, man. I was going out to some land by my college. It was owned by some big company in the city. and they didn't check up on the land. They didn't care who was out there. So I just pull around to the other side of the college off their property and go off to their woods, put up bottles and targets and whatnot, and just shoot at them. And I wasn't hitting much except on accident. I was just trying to figure out, like, how do I make this bullet hit this thing? I know I've seen people do it. And so I'd start to go on YouTube and look up stuff. And one of the guys that always came up was Rob Latham. Are you familiar with Robbie Latham?
I'm not.
Okay, so he's literally one of the most winning dudes in American history as far as competition goes.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Actually, he's about, I think Robbie's probably 60 at this point. He just won another national championship this past weekend. Yeah.
Good for him.
In single stack. He just won another championship. He's had 2 full-blown knee replacements. So the dude can't move like great. Like, I mean, he's running against, 20 to 30-year-old guys, and he's got to be at least 60.
And he still smoked him.
And he just won a national championship. Yeah. So, I mean, this dude's, like I said, 60. And if he's going to a full-blown national championship where, like, everybody's combined, they kind of started splitting them up into different categories. Sorry, we're getting off topic, but, you've got 900 people at these national championships when they combine them, and dude's still going to be in the top 30. Like, it's insane. Yeah, he's crazy. But started looking up these YouTube videos, and he always came up, and I realized that he was a competition shooter, and he was showing different ways to grip the gun. And he was one of those first people that said, your sights don't matter. The way you press the trigger, it doesn't matter. He's just going through these different things. Everybody watching this, please make sure you do your homework before you just say, Trayvon said it doesn't matter. Right. It's all within context, okay? It's all within its context. But and I learned what he meant by these things don't matter, because when you put all these different fundamentals together, certain things go out the window and certain ones make more sense. But I started watching him, and I was like, dang, competition shooting. Okay. So I looked up competition shooting in my area, and lo and behold, Spartanburg had a freaking competition circuit every, what's their schedule? Every first and fourth Saturdays, they have a competition, and they were having 120 guys and girls show up every 2 weeks. It was freaking awesome. So I signed up to go play with them with a Glock 19, and a Glock 19, and signed up and had some guys take me under their wing, and 2 GM and a master both took me under their wing, and they started showing me, this is what you need to do. This is what dry fire is. That's where I learned dry fire. It's like, hey man, you can be good. You've got the athleticism and the drive. So try it out. Come see how you like it. And I joined up probably a couple months later.
Yeah. Now, speaking of GM, I've heard that you actually hit that at one point. Is that correct? What's that?
GM?
GM, Grandmaster?
Grandmaster. No. So if you hit it, you're there. If you hit it,
okay.
If you hit it, you'd be there.
Okay. So currently you're at Master.
Yeah. So I got to, so Grandmaster is 95%. So you are the top 5% of all shooters in the country. So right now I'm Master, which is top 15% of all shooters in the country. So when you hit that GM, you're supposed to be cream of the crop. So I think it was 2019, very early 2019. I was probably like one classifier away, and a classifier is a standard drill that you got to shoot. Everybody in the country would shoot this classifier, so you know exactly where you stack up. I needed like one classifier, but like I said, I was having health stuff going on and personal crap, and everybody's life gets in the way. But I was at 94.3% or something like that, so less than 1% away from being a grandmaster.
Hey, Trey Bob is a bad man.
Yeah, I had 2 major surgeries and tried to come back, a couple months after the surgeries, and went to go shoot a classifier match, which is basically a match. It's all classifiers. So it'd be 6 of them. So if you could just nail, 2 of those classifiers with a grandmaster run, you'd be good. Or I would in that situation. Well, I go there and I freaking bomb it. I hadn't practiced.
Jeez.
I just thought I'd be able to walk in. I'm like, I just need one, I just shoot them all. I just need one. And I think I got one that was maybe close, and it ended up tanking my scores because the way the classification system works, it takes your most recent 6 classifiers, and it says that's who you are, basically. So yeah, it knocked off all the other classifiers that I had and replaced it with those 6. So it stuck me back at like mid-level master.
Man.
Yeah, so all the work I did before was basically erased. So I'm kind of starting over.
It's a new year. 2021 is upon us. I see you've been competing a little bit, kind of getting back into it. So I assume you're on your way again?
Not really.
No, my bad.
No, I do a lot of different takes at the same practice and split it up for Instagram.
Of course.
So it seems like I'm doing a lot of work.
But that's honesty, though, because really the world of Instagram and social media, and maybe we could speak on this a little bit, it can be sometimes
it's tiring, man.
It can be tiring, but it can also be the best of a person's, accomplishments. And I would say, and this is something that I feel like a lot of people who look into guns and think about firearms, they either get intimidated by or they feel that they have to try to keep up with is, the guys who have all the guns, the guys who have invested years and years and thousands of dollars into this hobby, sport, way of life, just depending on what you want to call it. And it's like, dang, I wish I could be this guy, but you're not going to be Trey Barber. Not yet, unless you put in Trey Barber time. Like, you got Trey Barber money? Like, what you doing? Don't try to keep up with Trey. Like, he's not, do you? And I suppose that's what I would tell somebody who's thinking about getting into firearms, thinking about this or that. I'm not saying, disregard, common sense and go out and get the cheapest gun possible. But, be at your level. Buy what you can afford. Train as often as you can. Because, Instagram, it's not entirely fake, but sometimes it's a highlight reel. It's the best. A lot of folks aren't putting their worst on there.
Exactly. And I mean, I don't say anybody put your worst on there, but it is kind of your portfolio for a lot of people in a lot of different genres.
Especially when it's your business like it's yours.
But I do say put honesty on there because, like you said, people do get intimidated by what they see, and I know I get a lot of business from my skill level and from what people assume that I'm able to do. But then I know for a fact, because people have told me they are intimidated by my skill level. And if I ask them, hey, come out, take a class, man. Like, hey, you're asking these different questions in my DM. It's like, yeah, I know the answer to that. Come take a class and I'll fix it for you. And I literally said that, but I know the guy, so I wasn't trying to be, butthole.
Sure.
I was like, yeah, I know what the fix is. Come take a class and we'll go through all of this stuff. I'll kind of give you extra because I do know you. I know you're traveling 3 hours away, and I'll send you home with stuff to do and call me and we'll work on it. But like you're saying, don't try to live up to everybody else's expectations because they have no expectation of you. So anything that you're trying to do or we're trying to do is typically, if we're trying to prove something to somebody else, you end up taking stuff away from yourself. So like you said, I didn't get here overnight. I've been running my business for 3 years now. And my first year, I didn't do crap. My second year was decent. Last year was great. But who knows what this year would be like, right? Everybody was, pants scared off of them last year from just everything going on. So everybody wanted a gun. Everybody wanted training. But yeah, as far as Instagram goes, I try to be as transparent and open as possible. And you get the real genuine me on there. Like I just bombed South Carolina state championship. I went in with I did pretty good in my last 2 matches and I hadn't practiced much. Yeah, I'll go to state and I should probably be fine. And when I turn around, I look at it. Yeah, I should have been top 5. I probably could have been second, honestly, if I would have just shot the rest of the match the same way that I shot like my first couple of stages. But I literally let one mistake. I let one mistake happen on the stage, which was completely fine. And I kept that mistake in the back of my head, and I took it over to I had 2 more good stages and took it over to another stage, and that one I completely bombed. And I took that to the next one and the next one and the next one. And I just racked up mistakes that you just can't peel yourself back from. But that's why I put it on Instagram. Like, hey, I had a shameful performance and this is why. But if people don't put that out there, people that are watching my page or looking up to me or who want to compete or whatever else, and they never see somebody say that or show that, well, to them, it's like, hey, this dude's perfect. This dude doesn't make mistakes. That's not life, and that's I don't think it's fair for anybody, whether you're in the gun world or I also do photography, so the models and the modeling world. I don't think that's fair for anybody to kind of portray this perfection. Show the progress, show the steps you had to take to get there, and show some of your downfalls. Some things are personal, but show some of those downfalls. When people have them for themselves, it's not like a foreign thing to them. They understand it's normal.
I appreciate that. Now,
Yeah, man.
I have heard that you have worked with other decently competent shooters, like I Run and Gun, Will from I Run and Gun.
Yeah, man.
Folks like him have worked with you, have trained with you. You've worked with them on perfecting their technique. What with guys like that who they can obviously shoot? Like, what do you have to teach them? I mean, obviously you know what you're talking about, but for guys at his level who are like, man, I can't get over that hump. What are some things that you like to work on with those guys to get them to the next level?
Will's good people, or sorry, whichever in Yuvu. Will's great. So typically with guys like him and anybody else who I've trained with, kind of in that same skill level currently, it's typically going to be a mental thing. I think Will already has the skill set there. And we're not going to just focus on Will. But people in guys or girls in general who are kind of in I think Will's in B class. Right. So generally your B or your B, A class guys or low level masters and down, typically get in this rut of focusing on these, I don't know how to call it, focusing on these skills that are very apparent. So like reloads, a cleaner trigger press. And those tend to be some big things for a lot of people. Like I want to make my reloads faster. I want to make my trigger press cleaner. What else? There's another, the draw. I want to get a faster draw. I want to get so a lot of these things that are fundamentals that newbies kind of see, and they want to focus on that. Well, these guys and girls who get to A class and B class and low master, they still focus on these things, whereas honestly, you don't have to clean them up that much more to be great. What you need to do with that trigger press is start learning how to prep the trigger for longer shots, but up close, you need to learn how to slap the hell out of that trigger and just keep pushing. It doesn't matter. Like I said before, whether your hits are hitting or touching one another on that piece of paper, or whether they're spread out but still in the A zone, those are still 2 A zone hits. So who cares where they actually went in that A zone, so long as both of them went in the A zone. So with guys like Will, who have that similar type of skill set or similar mindset, it's going to be more of a mental prep and talk, and really focusing on the finite skills. So what's the thought process or the subconscious thought process that goes into executing this particular part of a stage? So if you have to go from point A to point B, you've got some targets in between to shoot. What's going to be the main thing to get you from point A to point B? And I'll ask that question. It's like, well, I need to shoot all the targets and then move. Okay. How far away are these targets? 10 yards, 15 yards, 7 yards, whatever. Okay. Can you move and shoot while, these targets are this close? I mean, yes, no, maybe so. I was like, all right, well, let's shoot them all while moving. Okay. Well, now stand still, shoot them all, then move. But what's going to be faster? It's always going to be moving. So it's like, all right, let's get that mental disconnect away from, I can't shoot these while moving because one's further or one's closer, whatever. And let's now focus on these smaller, finite movements. While I engage the first target, I can be moving. That second target, I can be moving. And maybe the third one, which is 15 yards or something, I just have a little slight creep, but I'm not completely still. I can still have somewhat of a motion go and get 2 good hits and be gone. So I like to focus on the smaller skills that these guys may not focus on themselves. Your entries and exits are going to be big. So getting into and out of a position is going to save you a lot of time. My good friend, and Will knows him too, Jason. I harp on him all the time, like, hey man, get your freaking gun up. Get your gun up sooner. So the sooner that I can get my gun up and have it already on target, already be acquiring a sight picture, the sooner I can shoot. So I don't have to actually press the trigger any faster. I don't have to run any faster. I can literally just have my gun up earlier versus getting to the spot and then pressing my hands out. I can already have my hands pressed out 2, 3, 4 steps before I even get there. So small things like that make a huge difference. What else? Just trying to be as efficient as possible. If you're shooting as much on the move, again, those entries and exits, where it's going to be a better place to engage targets. Can you blend positions together? So can I shoot this group of targets and this group of targets with one small foot movement versus having to stand here and then shuffle over or run over and shoot this stuff here? So with guys in different levels is kind of how I would, that's how I generally take it. So Will doesn't need help with trigger press or reloads or drawing the gun. That I would clean up all those smaller things that people tend to overlook.
There you go. Well, hopefully, if there's a competition guy who is pretty good but trying to get to that next level, hopefully he can hear what you had to say, take it in, and maybe even sign up for a class, because I hear you travel sometimes.
Yes, sir. Sometimes. Just depends on where I'm going.
Yeah, I know you got a family, so traveling is one of those things where you have to decide whether or not you're going to do it. Let's talk a little bit about, and not everybody loves to talk about this, but Black folks and firearms. There is a lot of stigma in the Black community around guns. Some states and some areas are worse than others. A lot of the instructors that I brought on here have gone on and mentioned that, hey, when I first saw a firearm, I was, sub 15 years old, and it was in the hands of a drug dealer or somebody on the wrong side of, good living. And that, I think that scared a lot of parents away. And there's a much longer history of all the laws that have been established to kind of intimidate folks that look like you and me, or push folks like you and me away from firearms. And we could get into that. But I suppose what's been your experience in firearms? Because I know you said you have a carry gun. Yeah. I know a lot of Black folks who are scared to carry, scared to get a concealed carry permit, because then they feel like it'll make them a target. Scared when constitutional carry allowed them to carry without a permit, because then they feel like now they're even more of a target. Like, what's been your perspective? Because perspective is what we like to cook up on this show, and then we serve it out.
Yeah. I got you.
Yes, sir.
It's about perspective. So, like I said, I typically teach a lot of concealed weapon permits. So over the past 3 years, I've taught close to 800 people. Now, I don't know if 800 people have actually gotten their permits, but I know that's how many people I've put through classes. Typically in the classes, I hear that I'm scared of guns, or this is the first time I've held a gun where I'm from, I live in Rock Hill. I'm from Rock Hill. A lot of people here have hunted before, or great-granddaddy or granddaddy had a shotgun, or whatever the case may be. So I honestly haven't had much of the, I guess, stigma of like the fear of guns being in like a criminal's hand or anything. Drug dealers and gangbangers hasn't ever really been a huge thing in our city. We had gangs kind of cipher through when I was in high school, but they had a huge wipeout. They kind of got rid of them. You still have your little local neighborhood hoodlums that want to do their thing, but they get punched in the face and they'll knock it off pretty quickly. No, I say that, and we actually just had two young ladies get shot the other day. So,
oh man,
I don't know. We've had quite a few kids getting. Yeah, man, I know. Had quite a few shootings in the past year or so, and it's kind of odd for our city. It doesn't normally happen here. But I guess my biggest stigma is still going to be that, guns are for bad folk. Good people don't need guns, or people are just scared of the object itself, like it's going to jump up and bite you. I mean, my freaking carry gun's been sitting here on the table the entire time we've been talking, and it hasn't hurt anybody quite yet. So,
right.
you know, I like, you know, you can tell people that all day long, and it's, you know, it just goes right over their head. It's like, you know, somebody has to actually use that, right? Like I said, I hadn't touched a gun until I was legally able to. That's because my father never had them in the house because my mom was terrified. My grandfather got rid of his when I was a kid at some point. I remember going to his closet, and he had one of his church shoe. He had an old revolver and church shoe. And ever since I saw it there, I've never seen another gun in the house. And now he absolutely hates guns. He can't stand them. Yeah, he's a Vietnam vet, multi-war vet, actually. I think he fought in 2 or 3 wars. So I always say he's kind of earned the right to say no to guns, because he's done a lot with them, you know, done a lot more with guns than anybody else probably ever will, other than, you know, current military special force type guys.
Yeah, well, we want to take a second and thank him for his service. You let him know we said thank you.
Most def. Yes, sir. Of course. But even saying that, I mean, he freaking helped me come and fix up my gun range, right? So he's a supportive. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Hey,
he's supportive.
You know,
he's
as long as he's
supporting.
supporting, that's family, though, man. That's the family you want, because, you know, unfortunately, there are some families that get split over the issues of guns and gun rights, and politics and things like that. And, you know, I've actually taken some heat over black folks who have come on this show who have been indifferent or have said things like, I don't like left, I don't like right, I'm just kind of in the middle. Like, people get mad at that. And they sometimes they'll turn off, they'll close their ears and say, anything that you have to say after this, I don't want to hear it. And unfortunately, the Second Amendment, guns, gun rights has kind of become like a political thing, when I don't think it was ever meant to be political. It's just, you're right, you know, there's a lot of things that shouldn't be
made political.
No. And the funny thing is, I shoot with a lot of black folks out in Dallas, and I would say a majority of them would identify as left-leaning, but yet they are for the Second Amendment. They're for having, you know, guns in the house to protect your family. I mean, they just want to protect their family, and that's something that I really wanted to showcase. Is you don't have to be one way or the other. You know, not all black folks are a certain way. Not all gun lovers are a certain way. You know, obviously Trey Barber's a family man. I'm not going to ask you what your political affiliations. I know you still got a business to run. I don't want you to get canceled. All right, well, let's talk about it, man. Do you have political leanings or?
Nope. I'm in the middle.
You see, in the middle.
I'm in the middle now.
And a lot of folks are in the middle.
I probably have a little more left-leaning background or ideology, just because I grew up in South Central Rock Hill. So I grew up rough, right? Not necessarily rough, but we grew up. I remember the one time only my father ever came out of his mouth and said, "We are poor," and I can tell that it hurt his soul. Yeah, he came out of his mouth and said it, though. You know, it's different to have lived it, and you know, you have the lights get shut off, or you don't have Wi-Fi, or, you know, when I was in high school, we had the phone with the minutes. You know, you can't call your girlfriend for a couple of days till mom gets paid to come load your phone with some minutes.
Don't remind me.
I think your audio cut out on me.
Oh, God. I said, don't remind me. I'm traumatized. Man.
Right.
Man,
well, yeah, he was like,
my text ran out. You only had 800 texts, and now you can't text us.
I remember that. Well, don't call anybody till after 6 or 7.
Or you run up mama's bill.
Well, yes, so I'd say I lean a little more left, but I'd say I pretty much place myself firmly in the middle, just because I do have so much love for gun rights and what they represent and how they help black people in general get out of the situations that we were in, right? And it's probably one of the only ways that we can ensure that we don't go back, because people love to believe that things that happened in the past can't happen again. Yeah. Who's to say it can't happen to us or some other race, right? I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, but I like to live in the reality that things aren't always so hunky dory.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say I didn't vote left or right this year or last year. I vote libertarian because I agree more with that party.
Okay. Now, actually, I do have a little bit of relationship with a group of libertarians, and I'm sure they'd love a shout out, but they're not paying me. So, that said, they are at least the group that I talk to and hang out with on a semi-regular basis. They are extremely pro freedom, and they are extremely pro 2A. And sometimes people may accuse them of being what they call diet Democrats, but I think labels, kind of do more to hurt than to push people to accelerate. Like some of these, like, okay, so you're a gun lover, that equals gun nut. So that means you're this, this, and this. And it's like, no, that doesn't mean what you think it means. People assume that, oh, you like guns, so you want babies to die. Like, if you ever been on Reddit or
so you're okay with the school shootings. Like,
oh my gosh, please just chill the freak out. Like, what are you saying?
What are you saying?
About? Like, what is coming out your mouth? Like, watch your mouth first of all. Like
people are weird. They just think that because I don't know. Oh, you like the color blue, so you must be a Crip. Like,
must be.
What?
It's not
you understand
like
how
that.
ridiculous that sounds?
And that's a big reason why I really wanted to have this this platform do well, is because people need to know, like, it's not what the media, go ahead, blame the media again. It's not what the media has told you. It's not, all gun lovers are old white men, because you're clearly not old and you're not white. Sorry.
I don't think so. That was the main reason I actually started my training company, or company in general, because it didn't originally start as a training company. I actually got my concealment permit and then started learning how to shoot in competition and got my fundamentals really solid. And it just kind of dawned on me. I was like, man, I don't know anybody in Rock Hill. When I wasn't in Rock Hill yet, I was still working in Greenville from school. And I was like, I don't know anybody my color or black in general that teaches this or has any sort of skill level. I was like, I want to start a business in the next 1 to 2 years, within 2 years, I think, and just teach people gun safety, how to use guns properly. And I want to try to get as many concealment permits into the hands of my community, black, white, or other, as possible before, my time is up with teaching. And I think I'm on track to try to do that. So that was my main thing, was just giving back, offering my classes at an affordable price that anybody can freaking, get a concealment permit with great instruction. I'm a competition shooter. My direct guy beside me is a competition shooter. Another guy that works with me, Josh, my brother, he's not a competition shooter, but he's came up under me and Glenn, who both are. So he's getting great fundamentals. So we're giving people in our community the absolute best training that we can possibly give them as far as fundamentals and safety goes as possible, and not just a freaking, piece of plastic that says, hey, you can carry a gun around now. So that was our main thing, man, giving back.
Yes, sir.
Right.
I like that. And I appreciate you, man, for doing that, because obviously you could have said, oh, man, this is Barber Training Solutions. We're going to have the premium prices, jack up the rates to be, 15% higher than everybody else's, because you're the best. Right. You're this guy, you're that guy, you're that name. But you didn't do that, so we definitely appreciate that. Let's hop back into the spice real quick before we get out of here. So, a lot of guys who are into or who are the tactical cool guys, they'll say, competition's not tactical, bro. What you got to say about that, man?
Then why do I personally know Special Force, and definitely will not name him, but I know a Delta guy. I mean, that's the absolute most elite of the elite of the elite of Special Forces, shooting competition regularly, right? I think that should, if that doesn't shut you up if you're tactical, I don't know what will. Some of my best I'd say friends or associates that I shoot with on occasion now, but it used to be regularly, are Green Berets and Rangers. I mean, those are becoming some of the most popular new guys to enter the sport and stay, simply because I'm in South Carolina. So in North Carolina, there's Fort Bragg, which is home of Special Forces. So these guys come out and play all the freaking time. And then, you know, a select few of them get really serious and they stick with it, where, you know, the rest of them just kind of pop in and out here and there. If it wasn't beneficial, these guys wouldn't be getting notes, you know, from generals saying, "Hey man, I saw your accomplishments. That's freaking awesome." These guys wouldn't be getting flown around the country teaching competition courses. You also wouldn't have competition shooters getting flown to your bases teaching the tactical guys classes. You also wouldn't have an Army marksmanship unit where Jacob Hetherington and John Browning are on the Army marksmanship unit teaching you guys how to shoot, but they're also out here winning national championships in competition shooting. So that's all I got to say on that.
Definitely not tactical. Yeah, not at all. So, I mean, I said, "Dad, definitely not tactical." But no, that's awesome.
They're definitely not tactical.
Nah. Can we talk a little bit about your race gun? I don't know if you have it with you, but what are you running? And
where is it? I can grab it real quick. I think it's on the bench out here. Give me like 30 seconds. Yeah, just a second. Oh, all right. Probably a little bright for this shiny gun. Where's the light here? It's about as low as it's going to get.
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
This is a Gray Guns Edition SIG P320. So it's just a 4-point. Not quite. I wish it did. So it's just a SIG P320.
What kind of slide is that?
Slide has been. It was cut by Gray Guns themselves, so they get the slides blank. So I guess just a piece of steel or whatever, and they cut it themselves. So they cut it, I guess, to be perfect weight or the optimal weight for them. The lower is just the Legion grip, so it's the tungsten infused grip or whatever they call it. And then you have the Gray Guns trigger, which is what Gray Guns is known for, is aftermarket parts and triggers. So it's the this is called the hybrid trigger, so it's not quite curved all the way, but it's also not all the way flat, so it's kind of in the middle. They call it a hybrid. Then I have a SIG Romeo 3 Max optic on there, which I love it, but it is currently cracked, and I'm not quite pleased with SIG because I've called them twice to get a replacement, and I still haven't had a replacement in about 2 weeks. So,
did you rack it on something? Like how'd you crack it?
It actually just fell off my my shelf on the wall, and it hit something going to the ground. But I mean, it was no more than 6 foot drop, which these are supposed to be drop tested and all that crap. So I mean, it fell on carpet.
Yeah,
maybe hit the table on the way down, but SIG does have a great warranty to replace it, but I guess I just got to get them to place it.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys will rack on hard surfaces. They'll just rack the gun. Yeah, and that's crazy. Wow.
I would only do that if I absolutely had to.
Right. What kind of barrel is that?
I'm actually not sure.
Obviously, some match grade barrel.
Yeah, I know it's a match grade barrel. I can't recall the name of the company, so I don't want to just throw one out there in case it's the wrong one. But it has been fitted by hand by Bruce himself, Bruce Gray. It is a bull barrel, 9 chambered in 9 mil. Sorry, I'm getting more stuffed up as I talk. And everything is hand fit and polished itself. So if you could actually feel this thing, it feels like it's running on ball bearings in here, man. It's freaking slick.
Oh yeah, it's
then it's got a silicone carbide grip texture on there.
Oh yeah,
it's like it's on butter.
That's what Will has. Now, how light is that trigger? Because I saw you moving it. How light is that trigger?
So it's probably a 3-ish pound trigger.
3 pound?
Yeah, about. That doesn't help at all. So this is the take up. Not much take up.
Yeah, that's
break.
Nothing. That's literally nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, it breaks ridiculously easy, and the reset is there.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty reset.
So it's yeah, it's a nice trigger. I do believe I'm gonna change it out to a completely flat one because that's what I ran for, about 2 years straight with my other SIG. So I switched over to this curved one just because people said it was the bee's knees, the way to go. I don't know if I'm quite all the way believing it quite yet. So I want to switch back to a flat just to see if I just prefer that one better. It's
Sure.
honestly all up to the shooter.
You're right. It is all preference. Now I know that a lot of these guys have $5,000 to $10,000 bull race guns that are just retrofitted to be perfect for super flat shooting. Like what's your I was gonna say theology. What's your ideology on the highest end only for racing? Like you could never carry that gun for everyday life, and obviously I don't think you carry that gun that you currently showed. What's your ideas on guns like that from like Bull Armory versus the great gun SIG 320, which is proven good?
So Bull Armory isn't new. They've been around. They've been overseas for a while. They just kind of broke into the American market around last year, year before that. So a local guy in North Carolina, Chris Tilley, is sponsored by them. So we got to kind of fiddle with his before everybody even knew, who Bull was really. As far as carrying them, I want to get their Viper. I think it's like 1,500 or something like that. I don't know if it's double stack or single stack 9mm, but I want a 1911 style gun just to have one, just because I want one. So that I would carry. But as far as those race guns go, I was sponsored by a company I won't name. Year before last, it was a freaking sexy, what we call a limited gun in competition. So it's chambered in 40. Probably had like a 2-pound, no take up, no reset trigger. It was completely chromed out, all steel, bull barrel. Fitted by hand. The thing felt like, you saw how slick my gun here is. It was probably 5 times slicker than that.
Just straight
and
marbles.
He charged he charged, I think I paid like $3,200 for that gun, and that was half price because I was sponsored. So that gun went for like $6-something grand out the door, and that was the cheap one, right?
Yeah.
Because you can get an open gun with the compensator and the dot and all this other stuff you have to do to it to make it function properly. Whereas that was basically like an STI 2011, but just nice and shiny. A gun like that, chambered in 9, you could probably you could probably carry it. Honestly, you could probably trust it. And I say probably because it's still a 1911 platform, and they're just not as reliable as current like striker fire guns. And you can ask any reputable gunsmith around, like those, they can be great, but they're going to require maintenance. My SIG, the one that I had before this guy, I never changed a single spring in that gun. I didn't change the recoil spring. I didn't change the trigger reset spring, none of that stuff. And I fired at least 40,000 rounds through that gun. At least. Wow. I think I changed the recoil spring because Bruce told me to. He's like, hey man, you should probably change that spring. And I was like, why? It hasn't malfunctioned. It runs fine. And I would only have to clean the gun every 2,000 or 3,000 rounds before it would start to get a little sluggish. Have so much built up that bullets would literally have a hard time going into the chamber. So that's the only reason I cleaned the thing. I carry like a clone of this, but smaller. So I carry the SIG P320RX. It's it's just a smaller frame gun. It's lighter, but really the same trigger, still chambered in 9, and still has a dot on it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. I do want to go ahead and let you hop off for the night because I know it's getting late on your side. I know you're still a little stuffed up, not feeling the best, and I, obviously super thankful for your time coming on here. Man. Just a quick note to the audience.
Happy to be
here. Yes, sir. Quick note to the audience. If you guys have gotten this far in the conversation, please like the video if you're not subscribed. most of y'all aren't, go ahead and hit subscribe. Share with somebody who is thinking about competition or just wants to hear about gun stuff. And please go ahead and check out Trey Barber. Could you tell them where to find you?
Yeah, so Instagram is probably going to be the easiest place to find me. It's Barber, BARBER, trainingsolutions.com. Or, excuse me, Barber Training Solutions on Instagram. Yeah, just Barber Training Solutions on Instagram, and it's barbertrainingsolutions.com if you want to go to the website and check me out. We always have classes coming up. I try to keep content posted up on Instagram, but if you just need to scroll, I mean, I have enough on there. You can scroll for a couple of days.
Oh yeah, man, your Instagram is popping, man. It seems like at least every other weekend, everybody's sharing your stuff. You're out there. People are like, "Hey, check out what Trey's doing." I'm like, "Yo,
that's pretty cool.
Who is Trey? We got to get him on the show. He's that guy." So,
that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's been
definitely
fun,
honored
man.
that you came on, man.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, dude. So, guys, once again, if you check out Trey Barber, he's doing great things. He's helping out the people. And check the description below for links to his Instagram, his website. We'll put that down there, as well as other links that you can go to help out this channel. Thanks so much, Trey. You have a good night.
Oh yeah.
Heal up, man.
You too, brother.
Get better soon, bro.
Appreciate you.
Hopefully we can get you on again sometime.
Oh yeah, man. I'll be happy to. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Later.